Heyo, welcome everyone to Today in the Scene by Indie Arcade Wave. I'm Joe, your host, and here on In the Scene, we dive into a whole bunch of stuff in the arcade space, whether it be arcade developers, arcade owners and operators, pinball, or just news in the space in general. Now, since the last episode, I have started selling Stern pinballs with Compulsive Pinball, so if you're looking to add a pinball to your collection or arcade, let us know. We love working with operators as well as home collectors. We have very competitive pricing for operators. Now, this week we're going to bring someone back on that's been on the show plenty of times. I know him really well at this point, and I'm working with him on his social media. And that's Tony Hauber from DeathBall. We're going to talk about DeathBall, a new announcement for DeathBall, as well as his newest game, Devil's Peak. So let's bring Tony in here. How you doing?
Hey y'all, how's it going?
I'm excited to have you on here, man. I appreciate it. We're gonna have our meeting, our weekly meeting after this, anyways. But let's just, for anybody that hasn't seen another episode with you, just introduce yourself. Who's Tony Hauber, and kind of how did you get into the arcade development space?
Absolutely. Tony Hauber, I'm the creator of DeathBall and the studio surrounding that, the game studio surrounding that. I got really involved in arcade a little over a decade ago when I started playing Killer Queen, playing that nationally, really getting excited about the impact arcades can have on building community and stuff. Decided to build a game that worked really well in the arcade that happened to be DeathBall, launched that, and that was 8 years ago now. We've been building and expanding on DeathBall. We're in what we call the third season of DeathBall. We're working on the fourth season, which is how we introduce new changes to the game, and we got some exciting new games we're talking about.
Yeah, I think for anybody that's not familiar with DeathBall, I don't really know, like, if you're in the arcade space, I don't know how you haven't come into contact with one at this point, but just let people know, like, what is DeathBall? Like, what can people expect when they walk up to this cabinet and play it?
Yeah. DeathBall is it's platforming arcade soccer with wizards. So it's your high pace at the best way I've heard to describe it is kind of like Rocket League meets Killer Queen. You're a wizard, you jump in the air, you make bubbles, you're trying to kick the ball into your power well, and that creates a laser beam that strikes your enemy, and first one to strike their enemy 3 times wins. And beyond that, it's just simple competitive arcade action.
Yeah, and I love how concise the controls are. Like, you've got a joystick and a button. There's so much you can do with it depending on which direction you push the joystick and the button. It changes the interactions within the game, and there's so much depth to it, even though it's such a simple game. And it's a blast. I love seeing it anywhere that I encounter it in the arcades. And you're over 50 cabinets out, right?
Yep, we deployed 55 cabinets. That's as of MGC, and yeah, we've been really we feel like we've reached the new echelon as a arcade game studio, getting through 50 cabs here.
And so now that you've got 50 out, you said you have some news to announce. So I'm gonna just open it up to you and just like let you announce this news.
Sure. So I have been playing DeathBall in a league every week since its launch, and one thing that we constantly come up against is we love the competitive action, but there's no cooperative part of DeathBall. And so with this league throughout the last year, we've been exploring playing 4-player DeathBall, and it's come a long way. It's a lot of fun. It really is working well. And we are excited that to announce that we're going to be launching a 4-player DeathBall cab. The design and the specifics of that are not like entirely figured out, but we are in the process right now with Funko and designing that, and we are just like really excited about the future of DeathBall is competitive and cooperative.
Yeah, I'll have some gameplay footage up so that people can kind of see what 4-player looks like, because it's crazy, it's hectic, it's even more exciting than the 2-player, and I think it has a ton of potential in the arcade space. It could be very, very fun.
I like to tell people it's the closest I've ever felt to being in a Dragon Ball Z like fight, because it's like it's just like it's very high pace, but you still really have a strong connection to the character. the time that I spent making that character controller like work really well and be really tight, it really is paying off in 4-player.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see that. I haven't played it yet, but I'm ready to check it out at whatever convention or whatever we run into each other at again. Let's talk about Devil's Peak. So this is the newest game. You told me a little bit about it. I think I teased it on the social media, and then you took it to Midwest Gaming Classic and actually showed it off. So what has the process been like building this second game, and how was it received at MGC?
Yeah, so getting kind of back to DeathBall and its one joystick, one button, that was a creative restraint that I put on myself. I didn't want it to be more complex than that. In fact, I'm a button masher, so I'm like, I want a game that promotes mashing that button. So I guess Devil's Peak came from the question I asked myself, like, do you even need a joystick? Could you get down to just a button? And so I explored a lot with building a true one-button game. Of course, DSM Arcade has like an awesome arcade game called Switch and Shoot, which was an inspiration in that as well, which is another true one-butt. And I looked at pressing one button in the ways that like I could really make that interesting, and I kind of came down to skiing. I think like skiing would be a really great game, and so we built a prototype of I like to call it a tree treadmill, because you're just skiing down a hill and there's trees coming at you. And right now the prototype is just ski down the hill as far as you can, as fast as you can. And that's kind of in building a prototype. I like to say a lot of times I'm not designing a game, I'm discovering it, because a lot of the fun is things that you find along the way. You just got to get into the code. You got to start building that character controller. You got to start with the smallest idea possible. And we've really like this character controller, which is just a guy that skis across the screen, and he has like a little bit of a slidey physics to him, is already feeling really strong. I really wanted to push the idea of how far we could go with this concept of skiing downhill as far as you can, as fast as possible. And so we took it to, and we have it in a cab. I have it like right here. We have this prototype cab here of that game, and we took it to MGC. And for being such a bare bones prototype, I was like really surprised by the reaction. You could see people playing it, like sitting there playing it over and over again, like trying to get a high score. I had people taking screenshots because the score leaderboard wasn't even working yet. I had people taking screenshots of their high score so they could like save it and showing it to me. And then I got, a little into the competition there. So it definitely passes that litmus test of like, can it sustain in an arcade? And since then, it's been a total like manic design dream of like how big we can make this game, or what this game can become from just this one button.
Yeah, I love it. I'm super excited to actually be able to play a cabinet and check it out, because like we've talked a lot about the concepts behind it and how the map will progress and everything. And
Yep.
I think that's such a big point of like, even let's just talk Switch and Shoot, right? Like you've got the aliens coming down, you're switching sides when you're shooting, obviously switch and shoot. And as you're collecting power-ups, you go to the next level. But where does it all culminate? Like, where does it come together? You finally fight the boss, and then it's just an infinite loop, and it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And so how do you make a downhill skiing game where you have an end, right? Like you got to end at some point.
Mm-hmm.
The hill doesn't go forever.
Well, I mean,
So
it's
what does that
arcade.
do?
Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. Like, so like, just tell us like, what's your thought process right now from like the top of the hill to like the end of the game?
Arcade design 101 is you can't let them play forever. And so it really came down to how do we build a game where we get the skiing mechanic, but somebody can't get so good that they just never lose. And it really came down to the fact that like, if the measurement is how far can we go down the hill as fast as we can, well, then the fast as we can if we put an end to the hill, then it comes down to the fast as we can part being the way that like high level players like eke out more and more time. And so, it really, if we put an end to it, it really becomes a speed run game as people get more and more into it. And I think that like core, if everything leads back to that core, that really makes an exciting prospect of this game that, at its very first level, at its fundamental level, starts out as this tree treadmill, this thing that we already know is fun, that we already grabs people's attention, layering in more difficulty, but always making the experience of skiing this exciting, like how far can I go down the hill as fast as we can, layering in these new complexities to that till we get to the end, all of which can be used to get that faster mechanic. Like, how do we get down the hill faster? But that's like the special thing about arcade. Like you look at DeathBall from its core, it has like one thing that the first thing you can do is you can jump and lift the ball. Like you don't need to know about the slide. You don't need to know about the bubble. Just that is enough to like go and enjoy the game. That's where I want you to start with this game. All you have to do is ski down the hill. You don't need to know about the other levels that exist past this like difficult part that you're going to struggle to get through. That part just has to be fun. And then when you unlock the next part level or next thing that emerges, that's like that exciting moment. Or when you watch somebody else unlock it, because that's the other thing about arcades. You're like seeing other people play it and interact with it. That's this exciting like aha moment where I know skiing through trees is fun. I've played this version of this game 100 times. If I can find the next thing to layer onto that will be more fun, we're gonna like discover that the combinations that ultimately make this game what it is. And so design wise, I got a lot of ideas. The reason it's called Devil's Peak is because I have this like fantastical idea that the way that you finish the game is by fighting the devil in hell. You ski from the top of this hill all the way down through hell and into the bowels of hell to like defeat the devil. I think that's like this really exciting concept, and it's this kind of fun play on Devil's Peak, which is always like a trope of dangerous skiing hills, and then it ultimately is this path that takes you to the devil. And I just I don't know how we're gonna get there, but like that's the discovery part. We're gonna layer on new levels until we're in hell fighting the devil.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a super exciting way to look at it. Is like you kind of have this idea. Things can change as time goes on, but the ultimate goal is to go from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain, beat the devil, and then you win. And then once you've beaten the game, now you have to do it faster and faster and faster and faster. It's cool that you've built this element of high score, but also speed running at the same time, and those kind of coexisting. Because sometimes the speed run means you don't want to get as many points as you can, but this could be the opposite, right? You want to get more points by going faster and faster.
And
So it's interesting.
the heart of it, like for me, it always comes down to I don't want to, when I come to design, it's more like build the restrictions you really want to set for yourself and then force yourself to discover the way to get there. And so like this, what's the restriction that really focuses the game on going downhill as far as you can, as fast as you can? Well, the score is just going to be your distance plus your speed. That's it. And like everybody's been telling me, well, how do you like jump bonus points and stuff like this? And yes, those are all in the realm of ideas. Bonus points, maybe, of course, but then do bonus points lead to the core of the game, which is going downhill farther as fast as you can? Not really. How about mechanics that make you speed up? Or how about mechanics that like slow down global time so that you're going a faster speed, but you have like a slowdown spell that like makes it easier for you to deal with stuff? Or, the point is the ideas can go anywhere, but that core, that like forcing it to be about getting a further distance and a faster speed, all of it has to lend towards that makes everything contribute to that core. And so that's what you can find, these restrictions, and you can build into them. as you, instead of like trying to design an entire like concept, you can find the restrictions you want to get to and build into them.
I think that's a really interesting way to build a game, because everybody, I mean, there's the joke in the community of like everybody that becomes a game developer wants to build like this massive like RPG game that tells a huge story, like a JRPG, right? And that's where everybody gets stuck, as you get into it and there's so much to do, you can never finish it. So the advice that we got from Brooks at Creaky Lantern was build a whole bunch of little games first and then build your big RPG. And I think the arcade space is a great spot to start with that. Is, you're building these simple games that have a lot of restrictions, intentional restrictions too, to make the game a little more interesting and quick and fast paced. And we've been having a lot of activity in the Indie Arcade Wave Discord. If you're looking to develop arcade games, that's a great place to start to find some resources. So on that vein, like, what advice would you give to a new developer? Someone that, maybe they've made like a brick breaker or something just to get comfortable with the tools. Like, what advice would you give to them to start building their first indie arcade game?
I would say, like, first of all, like, I think there's a theme going on here. So start building concepts, start right away, start just putting it in there. It doesn't have to work, or even just, and you'll know right away so many things about it that you cannot even think through. You're going to tell yourself, like, I have to think through all these problems. You don't. You have to put the pen to paper, metaphorically here, and build something. And the next layer on top of that is, like, know your core, know what you're trying to achieve. Like, know the feeling you're trying to give people, because in like, build everything around that. And when you say, like, oh, I want to build this big RPG, there is no, what is the features that should be in this RPG? How do you even decide that? You could come up with 100 great features. You can't build them all. So when you have a core, then you know what you're going to build next. The next thing that is closest to that core that expands the game, and that is fun. And here's the thing, because you if you design this whole RPG, it's not going to be fun to play. I promise you. It's going to be like, it's going to be too overthought. Like, it's not going to have the emergent excitement that, like, discovering gameplay does. So if you have a core, and you should have an idea you want to get to, but you should build it piecemeal. And every piece you build on top of that should be fun to play, because that's the point. Everything should be adding to the complexity of the patterns that you're giving in a way that is still fun. Miyamoto has this famous quote about Mario 64, about how he spent so much time working on the character controller in a room, jumping around, jumping off the wall, until that was fun to do by itself, till the whole game could just be that. And then he's like, let's build an entire game with this. And I think that's really important. The Super Mario Brothers, sort of Mario 64, is a game about movement. That's the core of it, is the ability to move. And so making sure that that is fun by itself before you even add a single thing to that, that's important. That's an important foundation to build any game on. DeathBall is very much about interacting with this ball and anticipating where it's going to be. And I spent a lot of time with a wizard and a ball before I ever built levels or built a lot of stuff, just making that be fun, so that anything I build on top of that will be on a solid foundation. And I think that's, to DeathBall's credit, I think that's what it gets credited for the most, is really tight feeling mechanics. So then the next layer on top of that, make other people play it. Make other people play it. You probably have to make them too, because they might not want to right away. This happens with games. Like, your game might not be fun yet. That's okay. Don't ask them to design your game better. They're not game designers. Ask them these questions. What did you want to do that you couldn't do? What surprised you about the game? What was the most fun part about your game? Make them think about those things, because that's gonna get you deeper to the things you want to know than them telling you things you should add to the game. You're gonna want to listen to them, because they're excited fans, and you want to make them listen to them, hear them. Take what they say and get back to what did they want to do. An example of that is I took DeathBall to a lot of places. I got this feedback constantly. I want a turbo button. I want a turbo button. I want a turbo button. One of my restrictions for DeathBall is a joystick and a button. That's it. Forcing myself to hear what they wanted, not the turbo button. What they truly wanted was an ability to go fast, and sticking to my restrictions helped me discover the slide, which is you hold down and you press the jump button, and now you slide across the screen, and when you let go, you go into a little jump. That mechanic is hugely popular. It's interesting, it's unique to the game, and it exists because I didn't build a turbo button, which is what everybody wanted. I listened to what they really wanted, and I built that instead. So build something small, figure out what the core fun is, and test it. That's my advice.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good points there. I mean, the Mario 64 thing, it really is fun to load into the game and just jump around without even entering into the castle, like climbing the trees, doing flips, doing doubles and triple jumps. And it feels so fluid and clean because it was such a big breakthrough in that three-dimensional platformer kind of space. And you're totally right with it. Start simple, build something easy. Not everybody's going to want to play it right away. You just got to get the core mechanic. You just got to find the fun in the most basic parts of the game, just the movement of the game. And yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, I think the feedback point you made was excellent because we had so many people telling us, like, we want a boost in Galactic Battleground, and we put it in. And the way we introduced the mechanic was you go down with the joystick and to the side, and it kind of made you jump a little bit. And we had more people accidentally do that didn't know that it was a thing than do it intentionally, and it usually killed people. So we took that out and just gave people more vertical movement so you can move your ship up. So there's a little bit more ability to avoid things and get around. And that's pretty much, like you said, we took the feedback, but we figured out what do they really want. They want to be able to avoid stuff and not get killed.
Exactly. Yeah. They didn't feel like they had enough optionality and avoidance, right? And so they were like,
exactly.
Yeah, great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much everything I had for you for DeathBall on Devil's Peak. So just shout out social medias. Where can people follow along, and where can they keep up with the journey of DeathBall 4-player as well as Devil's Peak?
Yeah, we have a Discord, which we're getting more active in all the time. The best place to follow for just straight up news is probably Facebook. You can always connect with us on Facebook too. We're always listening there. We got Instagram that we also are always on. So those are the three biggest like platforms for connecting with us. If you want to buy a cab, you can always buy a cab at deathball.cab, deathball.cab, and you can find the latest and greatest there.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thanks for coming on, Tony. I appreciate your time and your insight. Every time we talk about game design, you always have such good insight on like keeping things simple and building within your restrictions to create depth within the game. And just the platform is fun in general is what you're shooting for.
Yep.
For anybody still watching, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us a ton. The wave will continue to grow. We can all ride it together. We can continue to cover this space, talk about more indie developers and arcades. And again, if you're looking for a pinball, I'm working with Compulsive Pinball to bring in Stearns, operators, and private collectors. Reach out, indiearcadewave@gmail.com, and we will get you whatever pin you're looking for. And until next time, peace.